Today we are excited to highlight Smithfield Foods, a name that you no doubt have seen in the refrigerated section of your local grocery, but if you're like my family, you've got several of their items in your own fridge and freezer. At this time, it is my privilege to introduce Troy Vandenberg and Bryant Stegelman, the Smithfield Foods Military Talent Acquisition Team, to share about what makes them the great place to work and the opportunities for you to join their team. Troy and Bryant, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. So just some quick introductions before we get started in Smithfield Foods and kind of our presentation today. So want to start with, we've got a canned presentation that we're going to fly through. This will be available for you through the Heroes Make America team. So we don't want to dwell too much on the slides. We'd rather it be an interactive conversation, but this is the slide deck that we present anywhere that we go, so that's what we're going to use. But we are going to kind of fly through the slides, and that's okay, because we want to talk more about what careers look like, what transition looks like, and then really focusing, yes, on Smithfield Foods, but really on the food manufacturing side of the industry, highlighting meat manufacturing and what makes meat different from other products that are manufactured here in the U.S. Myself, my name is Troy Vandenberg. I am our Military Talent Acquisition Manager. I'm a Navy veteran myself. Did 10 years active duty, submarine maintenance and repair projects. Got out in 2012, wanted to do something different with my life, and kind of stumbled into recruiting, and I've been doing this for the last 8 years. Been with Smithfield about 3.5 years, overseeing our veteran recruitment efforts as kind of my day job, and as my afternoon job, I oversee really all the recruitment that happens at our manufacturing facilities and distribution centers across the company, working with corporate engineering as well as corporate procurement teams as well, and kind of have indirect oversight about 10,000 hires a year across the company. And, back to that day job, trying to make Smithfield Foods a premier veteran employer. We'll talk a little bit about our programs and the awards we've won over the last couple of years at the end of this presentation. But before we jump into a little bit more and some polling questions, Bryant, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. My name is Bryant Stegelman. By title, I'm the Military Talent Acquisition Specialist for Smithfield Foods. I started working in the company in October 2017, so almost 3 years now. I actually retired out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina after 20 years. I spent the first 10 years petroleum supply specialist. Last 10 years, I transitioned over to special operations and with civil affairs. I retired in October 2017 and had a 1-month overlap with the company. Came into the program in a training program and a fellowship program that's designed for folks with master's degrees to put into middle management and corporate type positions. So myself and another individual, we successfully graduated from that program, and I was placed into this role and been here for about 18 months. So, basically I source and align talent, military talent, to the company's needs and hiring goals for veterans. Also, what I do most recently, got an emphasis on operations and maintenance. So I'm helping lead projects and partner with some of our other HR folks along with Troy. So, him and I, not only do the veteran side, but, we really do kind of holistic recruitment and projects for the company as well. And we are allowed to add that flair to really get veterans infused, whether it be training programs or whether it be getting them directly hired and aligned with skill sets that are appropriate. So between him and I think we have a real good understanding of what makes the company tick, what the company looks like and how to present the company. So this presentation is going to give you a good idea from the manufacturing side, how is food made? Basically we sell pork, and that's because people buy pork. People eat a lot of pork, and our company's done very well manufacturing and selling that product and becoming very profitable in doing so. So, we're going to have that, but there's going to be an emphasis on, the actual hiring that happens for those folks that are looking for jobs now. Maybe you're transitioning, maybe you've transitioned, maybe you're looking to get in the industry, and I think this will really help you a lot, kind of dispel some rumors and answer a lot of questions for you all.
Awesome. And speaking of questions, let's start with the first poll question, Jen. And you're the MC, so you have to ask it out loud, not us.
Oh. What is the world's largest pork processing company? This is where I should have the bacon again.
There looks to be a lot of bias here, thinking that just because we're the ones asking the question, it must be us.
I know.
man.
I mean, in test taking skills.
Right. They were put in alphabetical order to not have some bias.
All right, you got 2 seconds. 1,
Is that
2.
a test?
Those of you that didn't participate, you're on the shame list.
Yes, you are, the 10 of you. Correct answer to that question is Smithfield Foods. So pork processing, what makes us unique, and one of these slides show that, but we probably won't get into too many of the slides, and that's okay. So one thing that's unique about Smithfield Foods is that we are vertically integrated. So what that means, and kind of to Bryant's point of how we get pork to the consumers, is that we are hog farming, we are fresh pork production, and we're packaged meat production. In fact, if you look at that list of companies, none of those companies actually operate in all 3 of those verticals besides Smithfield Foods. So when it comes to JBS, they do the fresh side of pork, and then they do further processing of beef. Oscar Mayer is a craft brand. They don't own any hog farms. In fact, you can't go buy Oscar Mayer pork chops. You can only get their hot dogs, bacon, and sausage products and further processed meats. Tyson would actually probably be the number 2 competitor on that list overall when you look at pork processing, but you cannot go to a Tyson hog farm and get a Tyson hog. So that's what makes us very unique, is that vertical integration. So starting at the beginning of our slides here, our mission, we're passionate about producing good food the right way. Our tagline, as you see everywhere, you'll see our company name says good food responsibly. We want to be a stewardship of the way we treat our animals, the environment, the way we look at our communities and our people. In our industry, we are not vegan friendly, right? Let's just be very honest with that. We understand that in order to get meat to the consumer, it does deal with, the handling and slaughter of live animals. However, while that animal is on our farms or in our hog barns or being transported, the quality and welfare of that animal is a top priority for us. And, when we look at our environment, we certainly have to deal with animal waste as part of our processing, as well as animal byproducts. And our goal, it was actually just announced this week publicly, is to be a net negative carbon emission organization. And we can do that through some of our carbon capture technologies. When it comes to methane produced, from the manure of our hogs. So really looking at the environment, and then of course, making sure we have a high quality product for our consumers. One of the things that we'll say about what we do, if you see a Smithfield product, it is either number 1, number 2, or number 3 in its brand category, or not. We're not going to be putting it on the shelves, right? So where, say, maybe Hormel is a good example, you're going to see a lot of different varieties of Hormel that might not be category winners, and that's part of their business model, where we're only going to shoot for, if we can't be in the top 3 in market share for that product, we're not going to be playing in that product category. Next slide, Jen. Our vision, so we've got 3 guiding principles: responsibility, operational excellence, and innovation. And it's our goal to be the most trusted food and protein company. So historically, we called ourselves a pork company. That's not a lie, right? However, we want to look beyond pork to protein, and then we want to look beyond protein to becoming, just a global food company and a consumer packaged goods company. So one of the ways that I think we've proven that here in 2020, and unfortunately we haven't had time to celebrate it this year, and this might be new to you, Jen, is we were, or are, Walmart's food supplier of the year, right? So as a pork company, we expect to be the pork supplier of the year. As a meat company, we hope to be the meat supplier of the year, but to be the food supplier of the year, if you think of all those food categories here in the US, is a big deal. And the thing about Walmart is, if you're in manufacturing, Walmart is your number 1 customer, period, right? Everything that you do is done for, how do we make sure that our product is distributed and in Walmart? A lot of people think of Great Value brand and think of, quick, cheap, and easy. And although that might seem like the way it is for the consumer, the standards it takes in order to be on the shelves of Walmart, it requires our mission and our vision to get us there. They do audits, not just on how our product looks and what our product grades are, but they will do social audits on the organization. They will sit down with employees and ask them, what is culture like? What is turnover like? How does your manager treat you? And that's how they determine who their top tier suppliers are going to be. So, with that, I think that our mission and our vision, really show not only where our core values are, but something like being the food supplier of the year for Walmart really drives home that that's not just who we say we are, but who we are. So next slide. And then lastly, before we get into kind of the businessy side of the slides, and I'll turn those over to Brian, our social purpose, we're really big in philanthropy and reaching out to our communities and our people. And that's really what stemmed our veteran initiatives. If you look at, where we're giving our money, where we're giving our time when it comes to veterans programs, you'll find that most of the money that we actually give has nothing to do with recruitment and bringing folks into our organization, but everything to do with our social purpose and being a philanthropic organization and reaching out and showing care to the veterans. So that's a little bit of kind of the backstory of who we think we are outside of just the manufacturing side of the house. Before we dive into kind of the business side of it, let's do that second poll question, Jen. Don't be so quick to think you know the right answer to this one. So whenever you're ready, Jen. You're supposed to read it. You're the MC.
Oh, pardon me. What is the largest pork consuming country in the world?
Please don't say India, anybody. I'll just say that's your trick answer is India.
What we clearly know from this is that the United States eats a lot of bacon.
We do know that.
Or is that just me?
No, that's all of us, don't you worry.
Sometimes I think that. I get very focused on bacon, but there's a reason for it. 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2. There's still a few of you who need to wake up this morning and start responding.
All right, Brian, I'm going to let you take over from here with answering that question.
Yeah, no problem. So bit tricky, right? Depends on what you mean by pork consumption. So per capita, if you base it off percentages of people, Serbia wins. Now, if you just base it off of metric tons alone, China wins. So what's going to be interesting is we're going to talk about China a few different times during this presentation as far as our business is concerned because they're intertwined. So regardless of your politics or whatever you've been hearing in the news or whatever your opinion is, on China itself, there is a very real connection between us and that country, especially when it comes to making money on pork. So when it comes down to what we do, just to front load this and not take away from the poll question, is we are a for-profit company. So you got to switch your mindset first from being in the government sector, operating under a budget only because in the military, let's face it, you don't make any money, right? You're complete L on the P&L sheet. But now we're looking for more of the profit side on the P&L sheet for Smithfield, and China is integral to what we do as a business. You want me to take over right here, Troy? Okay, so when you think of ROI, and feel free to just blurt something out, what comes to your mind when you hear the acronym ROI, especially in business?
Return on investment. Return
on investment, right? And you're not wrong. That is the way we look at ROI. But our CEO, a little ways back, came up with the idea of return on investment. How can we get to that return on investment and turn that acronym into our guiding principles? So we have responsibility, operational excellence, and innovation, which Troy had already hit on. So the way you got to think about this is what kind of helps me couch what this means is, so, responsibility is our social aspect to what we're doing. This could be many things. We're environmentally responsible. We're responsible to our animal welfare. We're responsible to our employees. We're responsible to our stakeholders and our consumers. So that really deals with ethically what makes us a company. When you look at operational excellence, that really hits on what's going on now. How can we be good now as a plant processing pork? How can we operationally be better to save money, to make things more efficient, just to do what we need to do, because the more profit we make, the better we can take care of the things that we need to, like our employees, our stakeholders, and our surrounding communities. So we have to make money in order to give that money out to do that. Now, when you think of innovation, that's the future stuff. We want to constantly be better. And I think in some regards, you can say as a company, we're probably far behind other companies in the world if you just rack and stack us. But we are vastly superior than a lot of other companies in our space on many different levels. And I think we, as a food processing company, are definitely in the top tier of innovation. I don't have any statistics to back that up, but if you've ever seen food processing, not really known for its innovation per se, but I think as a company, we're getting there. And I think in a lot of cases already there and already leading that charge, if you will. Do you hit the next slide, please? So here's our corporate structure. Did you go past? There we go. All right. So yes, we are an American company that was acquired by a Hong Kong-based group. So some people will say Smithfield's a Chinese company. Well, that's not exactly correct. So we are a private company that was acquired by another company that is also happens to be operating out of China. So in some regards, yes, you could say we are a Chinese company, but that's not really a true statement because that sets off, some negative connotation, especially in this political environment. So WH Group bought us out, as you can see. Or actually, it bought us out in 2016. I guess they were publicly traded since 2013. So it got us out of the stock market on the American side, dealing with the American stock market, and help us be a little more maneuverable in where we wanted to be as a privately held company. So I don't know all of the nuts and bolts of it, but to be a publicly traded company and a privately held company in America has different ways that you can operate as a business. And for us, it made business sense to allow another company to own us and be under, if you will, an umbrella company. And that's what happened. But we are still very much an American-based company and an American ran company. So I just wanted to clear that up. So we are a global food company. You can see where we operate right here. We do have 55,000 employees globally. I think, Troy, we got about 42,000, 44,000 stateside, something like that, 40-something thousand. You see we operate in 5 different countries. Obviously, America's our biggest. When you're dealing with Mexico, you're dealing with a lot of joint ventures. A lot of that happens to be in the agricultural side. So if you didn't know, Mexico's big in agricultural too. So we have a lot of 50-50 splits with those kind of contracted farms, if you will. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the very near future, we started operating plants and processing facilities out there because it makes business sense, to kind of operate in that environment and sell food instead of having to truck food across a country to get there. So I think we're trying to get to a place in our company structure where we're processing and manufacturing the food in the country in which we're selling it. Obviously, we're dealing with something that operates off of a shelf life. So you'll see on there, we got Romania and Poland too. And then we have some corporate stuff that goes on out in the UK. I'm not super smart on what happens out there. I don't think there's a lot of actual operations that happens there, but our international business stuff is headquartered out in the UK. You can move on next slide, please. All right, proudly made in the US since 1936. So we were, for lack of a better term, a little butcher shop out in Smithfield Foods, I guess you could say, butchering fresh meat. And we have since grown to this vertically integrated company. So where we were doing, a little bit of fresh business, we grew, we did packaged business, we got an agricultural side, we're moving into the supply chain side. We got a lot of things that we're doing as we're getting vertically integrated. We have 45 facilities. As far as distribution centers go, I think, Troy, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 7? Still 7? Still yep. 7. The number goes up and down sometimes, but we're 7 right now. You'll see 40,000 employees, although I think we're north of 40,000 employees. Like I said, somewhere between 40 and 44, I would say. You see our company-owned farms is at 524, and then we have contract farms. So here's what's interesting, and this statistics probably changed a little bit. When I first came into the company, we're vertically integrated, which means that the hogs that we produce, we basically sell to ourselves. but we cannot possibly produce the amount of meat that we need to sell. So where do we get that meat? Well, we have to go out on the market and find that meat, and we have to contract other farms to do our business for us because we can't own, for whatever reason, all the farms that we need. And we were only producing, I think, about 55% of all the food of the pork that we needed, which leaves 45%, a gap of 45% of where do we get that? So we contract farms where a family or a company will own the farm facilities, but we own everything that goes into the hog and including the hog, and we set the guidelines and the policies for which they have to operate in raising our pigs. So we pay them to raise our pigs and we tell them how to do it. We give them the stuff to do it, but they still own the land and the structures and all the other stuff. We don't own that, but they have to operate within our guidelines in order to do so. And that is just an extension on our business because we have a supply and demand to meet in order to maintain our #1 position as the world's largest pork processing facility. Go on to the next slide, please. All right, so I'm not super smart on this, as I have mentioned before. So I usually take these facts as they are because I don't know, unless Troy, you got a lot of other insight.
No, I just click next slide usually on the slide.
We'll just take these for what they are.
And I usually click next slide again.
All right, we'll do that. Here's our team. Troy knows them way better than I do, but these are our executives. Do you have anything you want to say about them, Troy?
I'll take from here the next couple of slides. So this is our executive leadership team. And again, kind of as Bryant mentioned, we are a global company, and global is really the world that is not China. So between, Ken is our president, chief executive officer. He sits here in Smithfield, Virginia, and he oversees the, global operations for us. So that is US, Mexico, and over in Europe. And then you can see the rest of our leadership team. One thing that's interesting there, Dennis Organ, our COO. COO is actually a relatively new position for us in the last 18 months and has really helped us understand what supply chain looks like from a holistic approach, and really from there, how we can develop our people from, production employee all the way through the CEO and everything in between. So into the next slide. Who we are, core brand wise. We call the top three our big three. So Smithfield brand, our Eckrich brand, and our Nathan's Famous Hot Dogs. We have some regional brands and other national brands, as you see on that list. These are, Smithfield produced and Smithfield, branded and marketed products. However, we end up being about a third of your U.S. pork supply, because what's beyond just these brands that hopefully are already in your fridge on the next slide are who we sell to, right? So what you can see there on that next slide, and maybe okay, perfect, is we are kind of the off-brand label in some of these facilities. Like, who makes Kroger lunch meat? Well, Smithfield Foods is one of the companies that makes Kroger branded lunch meat. Who is the Black Forest ham on your Subway ham? Smithfield is actually every meat that's on your Subway cold cut. Who is your bacon on your Wendy's Baconator? Who is your sausage patty on your sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddle from McDonald's in the morning? Who's the chicken in Olive Garden, right? So that is kind of who we are behind the scenes in some major retailers that we supply for, that you don't necessarily see the Smithfield brand on. The only exception to that is Waffle House. If you actually go to Waffle House next time you're there and you look at their menu, you will see the Smithfield branded logo on their menu, because Waffle House takes pride in who their suppliers are. And in fact, all of the Waffle House bacon in the world is produced in our Clinton, North Carolina facility in a room that has Waffle House tile in it, because it is the Waffle House bacon room. So that's your fun fact for that slide. Next slide, Jen. Talked earlier about us being vertically integrated. You see that on this slide. We are the #1 hog producer in the world. We are the #1 pork processor in the world, and we are the #1 packaged pork company. So you can see where those market shares go. And back to the question we asked you earlier, you can see Tyson is in the processing and as well as the packaged industry, but Tyson is not in the pork growing industry. Kraft and their Oscar Mayer brand is in the packaged pork industry, but not in growing or processing side of it. JBS is in the processing and actually the growing growing side, but they are not in the packaged meat side of the house. So what really makes us unique, and what I always love to get out of this slide, is that not only are we the market share leader of all three, we're the only brand you see that's listed in all three of those verticals. And that vertical integration to us is extremely important for our supply chain. So next slide, Jen. Just a couple more slides about our business, and then we're going to take a huge breath to be able to ask some questions and kind of talk more about our veterans program. So you're going to see we're going to click through these next few slides pretty quickly, but that's just a graphic of that vertical integration I talked about. In the next graphic, and again, you'll have this slide deck for you to share, just shows where our $16 billion is spent. About half of that is in packaged meats, but a third of it is in fresh pork. 15% or so in international operations, and about 5% of our business is through our hog production side of it. And that's where our $16 billion pie goes. Driving U.S. growth, a big thing that's helping us grow sales here in the U.S. Is our export market. So on the next slide, what you'll see is where we export to. So about 25% of what we produce gets exported, and 25% of that goes to Mexico, 25% of that goes to China. What's really important, and you don't see it in this presentation, but we account for about 90% of the Chinese pork imports. So it might be only a quarter of our exports, but it's basically all the pork that's imported to China comes from Smithfield Foods because of our strategic relationship with the WH Group. And then lastly, sustainability. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but you'll see a couple slides here. You can just click right through them, Jen. You can read them on your own time around kind of our view on sustainability. The next one is definitely an eye chart on what we've done as far as sustainability is concerned, but I want to focus on our veteran efforts, so we'll skip that. And then lastly, our renewable side to reduce our carbon footprint and actually be carbon net negative here in the future. So with that, we've got, if you want to click on the next slide, Jen, we'll do the next poll question. So this is a great question that Bryant and I like to ask almost everyone that we're able to have a one-on-one with. So as you think about your next career, what, in your opinion, and we don't know who answered what, is most important in your career search? Is that the type of job? Is that the amount of money you're going to make? Or is that the location that you are in? So
I thought I was supposed to ask the questions.
I know I screwed up. I'll let you ask the next one.
I thought it was just because you lost faith in me after not asking the first
I mean, I
two.
kind of did. That's true. And
Right, I
Future
can take
goal
it.
is to be the new Vanna White.
it doesn't let me vote. That's sad.
Me either. The good news is I love my job and I'm not looking
Right,
for it.
exactly. I wouldn't have to vote, right? I like what Radovan already put in the chat there, a little of all three. So if you want to end that poll, Jen. Why we like to ask this question is it's really hard to get all three, right? A little of all three I think you can get. And that's one really important part. And if you're a veteran, it's a little bit different of a conversation. But if you're transitioning military, that's something that's really important conversation that we like to have. And I went through that during my transition. Bryant did that through his transition. But you got to focus on, the type of job, and you can even include in type of job, like the type of company or the culture and all of that stuff. You can look at money or you can look at location, right? So right now, if you want to make a lot of money, right, you can do that by going overseas, right? You're going to work long hours. You can, you're not going to get to see your family. You're going to really feel like you're still in the military in most cases, but you can make a lot of money doing that, or really a lot of other government contracts. There are some other things that you sacrifice in most cases when you pursue money, and nothing wrong with pursuing money at all. But you have to know what's important for you. Location can be great, but if you are heart set on a specific location, which is fine, you have to then realize, okay, what opportunities may not exist for me as a result of that, right? So if you want to be the CFO of a company someday, but you never want to move, you have to look at what companies have a CFO where I live, right? So that's something really important to keep. My personal take on that, and the advice I give a lot of people, is don't move just for Smithfield Foods, right? But be open to the fact that once you're an employee, maybe you'll have to move, right? So if Smithfield had approached me 3.5 years ago when I looked at coming to this job and said, hey, Troy, we want you to work for us, but you're going to need to move to Omaha, Nebraska, I would have said, I don't want to live in Omaha, Nebraska. But if my boss said to me today, Troy, you're moving to Omaha, I would say I'm moving to Omaha, Nebraska, right? So sometimes it's about where you're at right now and what your future is. I will tell you, not just with Smithfield, with a lot of organizations, the more open you are geographically, the better your career opportunities can be. And then what most people put right here is type of job. And that's what I would expect to see out of most veterans, is that the type of job is going to really influence your needs, wants, and desires. And so for us, what we want to talk about right now is, yeah, we went through those corporate slides, but we want to talk about what's important about the type of jobs that we have, what type of jobs that we have, and then what we're doing for veterans around those jobs. So starting outside of the slides that we have, we are a meat manufacturing company, obviously. What's really cool about us, as we discussed, is we're vertically integrated. So it's not just operations, it's not just maintenance, it's not just production, right? We've got accountants, we've got tax attorneys, we've got IT, we've got, truck drivers, we've got sales folks, we've got in-store delivery sales folks, you name it, that type of job exists in a company to get those 42,000 US employees doing something to support our $16 billion in revenue. So don't think when you look at a company about the major job that they do, think about all those different jobs that they have. And I think that that's one really great thing about food manufacturing, is number one, because of shelf life, like Brian talked about earlier, it has to be done here in the US, and all of those opportunities are here in the US. And that's going to be true for us. It's going to be true for Tyson. It's going to be true for Hormel. It's going to be true for Kraft. It's going to be true for General Mills. It's going to be true for, insert that major US manufacturing company of food, number one. Number two, that nasty word that came out of Jen's mouth earlier, COVID, right? We are a food company. We have not slowed down during this period of time. In fact, we've really kind of sped up because more consumers are eating at home. So we have 0 layoffs in 2020 due to the coronavirus. And that should resonate on a lot of folks of, wait a minute, if coronavirus didn't slow you down, nothing's going to be slowing you down during this period of time. We've had to change what our PPE looks like in our facilities. We've had to institute social distancing. We've had to move break rooms under tents outside. We're constructing physical buildings now that we realize we can't have folks sit and break and have locker rooms like they did before. We are certainly kind of being Semper Gumby during the process, but we are making sure that we're not laying workers off. We're continuing to grow, and we're continuing to meet the U.S. demand of our pork supply. And again, not unique to Smithfield Foods, right? But that's one thing that's very unique about the food industry, is the large players in that food industry were not able to slow down during this period of time. We've certainly had some challenges during that. We've certainly, made the press in our industry over just some of the challenges in making sure we're fully operational. But if you had any type of meat product in the last 24 hours, you better not turn around and ask why that company was producing the meat during this pandemic, because we need to get that food out to the consumers. And I will tell you, nothing's made me more proud of being in this industry than our response this year to making sure America is fed, and what we have to do to just change our mindset around manufacturing in order to make that happen. So with that, just a couple slides here, and then I'll turn it back over to Bryant. The next slide, veterans programs and what they look like for Smithfield Foods. So a couple things that we've done over the last 4 years to make ourselves a veteran-friendly organization. Number one, we've got an employee business resource group called Smithfield Salutes. I stood that up, and now Bryant leads that challenge of making sure that our veterans feel like they are a valued part of our organization and have a voice at the table. We've got some training programs. We've got kind of best-in-class military supervisor and training programs for transitioning folks looking to get into careers in manufacturing leadership. We've got a military fellowship program, which is actually how Bryant was onboarded into the organization, for veterans with master's degrees. And we're actually launching a third program sometime, hopefully this year or early part of next year, that we're tentatively calling the Veteran Foundation program, which is going to help veterans into some of our corporate supply chain careers as well. And then some mentoring opportunities. We partnered with our Smithfield Achieve Mentorship program and added some mentoring opportunities for veterans. And really, Bryant helped revamp what mentoring looks like as an organization. But it's not just hiring for us. You know, we want to ensure that we've got the right branding, we've got the right networking. We're participating in events like this so you understand the industry and not just the company. You know, of course, recruiting is part of that. Retention is a big part, and outreach to our communities. So the next slide will be my last one, and I'll turn it back over to Bryant with our next poll question. But so what have we done? So we are actually Military Times Best for Vets 2019 and 2020 award winners for our efforts, and they really focus on veteran and military spouse space, as well as the retention and support programs for them. We're headquartered here in the state of Virginia. We are the 2019 Enterprise Company, that means Large Company, Triumph Award and Impact Award. So most transformative hiring process for veterans and long-lasting impact on the veteran community. And why I think that those are really important. Virginia is known for being a contractor state, right? So in order for us to win those awards at the enterprise level, that meant I went against Booz Allen Hamilton, I went against CACI, I went against Northrop Grumman, I went against Newport News Shipbuilding, and Smithfield Foods, this food manufacturing company, is the one who walked away with those awards for what we're doing for our veteran employees. And lastly, every year we've taken home a Patriot Award for our support of the Guards and Reserves. Right now, if you are a Smithfield Foods employee and you are a reservist and you get activated, we will pay the difference between your Smithfield pay and your activation pay for up to 3 years consecutively while you are activated. So really looking for how we can ensure that, you know, our reservists and guardsmen and women are taken care of. So with that, Jen, if you don't mind asking the next poll question, and I will let Bryant take it from here.
I'm muted. What region of the country are you looking to work in? Of course, you saw there's things overseas too. That wasn't an option though. That's why I added other. Troy. Of course, I suppose. I know we've got some folks. I've got somebody, you know, you got anything in Hawaii? Maybe Alaska? Not a lot of hogs there?
Yeah, unfortunately,
Right.
land isn't great for hog growth there.
I guess it's understandable. We probably wouldn't swim well either if they happened to. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this.
All right, and I think, you know, the reason why we asked this question is kind of piggybacks on what Troy had said earlier regarding, you know, money, type of job, and location. It's something that he brought to my attention before I even had this job, I think, when we were just talking about recruiting in general, as I was involved in it, as I was a trainee at Smithfield Foods, that in his experience, it really, everything as far as looking for your next career boils down to those three things and some kind of combination. You know, maybe the stars align and you get all three number ones. Very rare, but I guess possible. But more than likely, you're going to get a strong number one, and then you're going to have to really negotiate on the other two. So this is really something, you know, when you're looking at Smithfield Foods, and maybe you're really after what we have to offer as far as positions go, and maybe you're really behind us, you know, in a sense that, you know, you love the company, you love what we do, but you're looking to move to Washington State, and in which case we're not going to be able to help you find a job. So if Washington State is exactly where you want to go, then we're not the company for you. And we're not the only company in that situation, right? So when you're looking to get a job, you really got to figure out how that location, money, and type of job is going to work for where you know, the kind of organization you want to work for. And you're going to have to come to terms with a lot of things when you're going through that transition process. So can you move the next slide? I'm not sure which one's next after this. Here's these aren't the only functional areas we have, but these are either ones that we see a lot of people asking for or ones that we're strong in, for instance. So farming and hog production, I'm not going to say it's the top of the list of what people come to our booth asking about, but just realize that I think we have Troy, correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere around 6,000 employees in hog production, something like that. Okay, so it's a chunk of our business, right? Not the biggest piece of our business, but we got a lot of people making pigs. We also have operations, and mostly what we call operations is going to be production. So some kind of plant-based position where you are, a machinist, you are working on the line, you are a crew lead, you are a supervisor, an operations manager, something involved in making the stuff. Maintenance and engineering is huge. I don't have the statistics on it, but I imagine a large chunk of our company is maintenance and engineering because they keep the movie parts moving when they break. And when a line isn't moving, we're not making any money because things aren't being produced. It becomes a big deal. Supply chain and logistics, I would say in the last few years has become super important. Whereas we were using a lot of third party and a lot of other things for that, we've now kind of front loaded it as important. And we got a lot of positions, a lot of restructuring has happened. Supply chain and logistics side to get the things that we need as a company, either to us or from us, to satisfy our customer needs. And by customer, I'm not talking about somebody sitting at their house, enjoying a nice, delicious pork chop. I'm talking about Walmart, Food Lion, Kroger. Those are our customers. People eating the stuff, those are our consumers. So that's what we mean when we're talking about that. When you're looking at IT jobs, we get a lot of this. We're probably not the company for you if you're looking to get into IT. We're not an IT company, but we do have a small IT department. A lot of our IT stuff, quite honestly, is contracted out to third party. We get a lot of third party support on it, but we do have people that do IT stuff. So you really have to be cognizant of that if you're looking at us for an IT job. And then corporate business. Obviously, it's just kind of twofold right here. On one side, we need corporate business because they keep the company going. On the other side, as a veteran, you probably don't have the business experience in a pork processing company. So it's very hard when you're looking as a veteran, as someone that may have a business degree, even if you have an MBA, to get into corporate business, because what you're not going to have is that corporate business experience. So you really got to find an entry point that makes sense. And that might mean a number of things. You're going to want that type of job, which means you're going to sacrifice the money and you're going to sacrifice the location to get the experience for it. And then you're going to work your way up. So finding your entry point doesn't mean you're starting over when you get out of the military. It means that you have to figure out if you need to take a step back and how many step backs you're going to take for that type of job or that type of money you're looking to make in the future. So it's more of a planning on your side. You're not going to come right out of the military and take over the same exact kind of thing in a privately owned business like Smithfield Foods. You might in government contracting, but you don't have the experience that we're looking for. So we're going to have to build you up and develop you a little bit for that kind of thing. And I think that's really what speaks to this slide right here. Can you go on the next slide, please? Here is some ways to stay in contact with us. Definitely check out our website. We do have a list of careers on our career site that you can check out. We do have an inbox at veterans@smithfield.com that basically Troy and I monitor. And we're up on social media. You can check out some current stuff on LinkedIn, Facebook, and a bunch of other platforms as well. If you're looking for some of the business stuff going on and just general news on what's happening in our business. Next slide. So most importantly, I think, getting some questions or answering some stuff that you guys might have for us. We have 9 minutes. I don't have anything going on at 12 per se, so I can stay on a little bit longer if you guys need to. But is there stuff you guys want to know? Troy and I are basically recruiters by trade, so a lot of our stuff is flavored towards the recruitment side of the house. But we can probably answer anything that you have for us.
I have a question.
All right.
Ronald Williams here out of the Fort Bragg class. So I've been to you guys' plants before because I used to drive for CR England at the one I think at the Tar Heel, North Carolina location. Me being kind of new, not new, but haven't had production done in a while. I was a food service guy. I was in charge of the team, putting out the meal and things like that. So I look at it as going back to that. Do you guys have that availability right now? And if so, are you wanting guys like myself to fill those positions? What I mean by that is, or you want us to work production first and then, come lead a small team and then go from there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ron. So really it depends on the location and the facility size. So Junction City is one of our smaller plants as far as total headcount goes. So opportunities for leadership, whether it's in production or, even quality side of the house, are relatively few and far between. Rochelle will tell you we're in contact all the time when there's an opening to try to get ahead of that with getting a veteran, especially someone coming out of this program when possible. So right now I am not aware of an opening in leadership there. We absolutely have manufacturing positions available. But what I'll tell you is, Smithfield policy, you have to be in your role for a year before you can get a promotion if you're a salaried employee. If you are an hourly production employee, there is no minimum period of time. So it's not like you've got to then sit there for a year or 2 or 3 in order to, if that opening became available. So we always encourage, if that position's not available, take a job in production. You can meet the team. You can be very honest with them up front about, kind of what your expectations and what your goals are. And as long as you're, embodying that during your work, you're going to see quick promotions. We do have veterans that work, hourly production jobs, obviously, and almost all of them are in there waiting on that next step. In addition, we have our military supervisor and training program, which intends to take multiple people a year from the production floor and into a supervisory training program as well. So that is an opportunity once you are an employee as well for us. So hopefully that answers your question. I don't know about specifically Junction City if we've got anything right now, but certainly, you could start in production, but it's not a requirement.
Question for you. Do you have any as far as production, product development, do you have any openings in that realm? I'm currently starting my own product line of chorizos, working with somebody else that also works with some other companies. And that's the area I'm trying to get into after 30 years of restaurant work and catering.
Yeah, good question. So for us, that's all of our R&D team, so research and development. So that's all done here in Smithfield, Virginia. About a mile north of our headquarters, we've got an innovation lab that's dealing with small scale production, testing new flavors, testing new products. If it can be manufactured in a plant, it can be manufactured at our innovation center. So I don't know, again, of any of openings but the keywords you'd be looking for, the key group on our team would be the R&D side of the house. Good question, Oscar.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jason, I know you had your, I'm sorry, Jason, I know you had your hand up a minute ago. Did you have a question?
Yes, I did. I was actually looking at the website about job openings, and you guys have like 2 or 3 in the Cincinnati area that I was interested into applying for. If I'm looking at like 2 or 3 different positions at your company, should I apply for all 3 or just apply for one and then tell them during the interview process I'm interested in whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jason. And I think that's really helpful for kind of everyone else on this call, not just with Smithfield, but with other organizations. So one of the things that, about us is we are a government contractor because we sell ham to the government. We sell bacon, so shipboard, you'll have Smithfield bacon. So with that, we've got to comply with what the Office of Federal Compliance's OFCCP regulations. And part of what that says is that I cannot interview you for a job that you have not applied for, right? So we always recommend, even though 2 jobs might look identical, to apply for both of them, because one of them might be, part of one department and we might already almost be filling that. And the other one might be brand new and we haven't even looked at candidates yet. So our recommendation is always going to be, if you see multiple openings and that interest you, to apply for them, because the hiring team, in fact, the location could actually have a whole different chain of command. That being said, also during your interview, talk about how open you are. You saw the other opportunities. If X, Y, and Z isn't a fit, maybe A, B, and C will be. So, feel free to bring that up during your interview process. However, our recommendation is always going to be to apply for all of them. And so specifically related to Cincinnati and why that's important, we actually have 2 facilities in Cincinnati. They are like catty corner from each other on the interstate exchange. So there's a mile and a half from each other as the crow flies, but it's completely different plant management, different HR management, in fact, different manufacturing directors, different vice presidents. They don't come together to form in the same group until our COO level because they're completely different types of operations. So that would be an example of a time where maybe one of them, it was too late and the other one never even knew you applied if you had only applied for one. So we recommend if you see multiple, apply for multiple. And in fact, when we see that you applied, we can see you applied for multiple. And a lot of time that draws us into, hey, this person is really interested and has been looking at our company and usually gets a phone call quicker. With that, our recommendation to everyone is if you do see a job you're interested in, apply. Again, we can't do anything formal until that happens based on our compliance regulations. However, shoot an email over to veterans@smithfield.com that you saw in this presentation, and Bryant and I might not necessarily have any decision-making authority on that, but we certainly have the put your resume and your profile at the top of the stack to make sure that you get viewed type of authority. So that's the best way to do is apply and then send us a note saying, hey, we met here and I applied for this job, and then we'll get you kind of top of stack for them.
So Harry had a question in the chat. Harry, would you like to answer or ask that? I think that might be beneficial for folks who are looking for non-production roles.
Yes, please. I would like for that question to be answered.
So Harry asked, he's currently a BSc in finance, currently pursuing an MBA. How could he get into a program for Virginia or Columbia, South Carolina, or anywhere in the Northeast?
Gotcha. So Northeast for us is Northeast Maryland. So it looked like you might not have known where that was. So Northeast for us, Northeast Maryland, as well as Springfield, Massachusetts. So for us right now, we don't have any current availability in our training programs. Those should become available here again sometime soon. So you might be able to be a good fit for one of those when they do launch. It may be as late as January by the time our next iteration of those programs launches. We're working through that right now and timing. For us, our recommendation is always find that job and know that it's going to take a year in that role in order to go into your next role. So BS in finance, pursuing an MBA, we've got financial planning and analysis careers that probably fit really well. We've got some accounting careers that may fit. We've got accounting happens both at our manufacturing facilities as well as our corporate office. Most of the rest of the finance is a corporate function. So you're going to specifically be wanting to look at Smithfield, Virginia for the location of those. But Columbia, South Carolina, we have a small baking plant down there. What happens in Columbia is when Hostess has cupcakes that they couldn't sell, they give them to us and we turn that into hog feed. That's back of the envelope. Bryant, any other way to word that if Bryant's still around? But that's how I describe Columbia.
Yeah, realize that there are a lot of things that go into hog feed, and a lot of it is the baked goods, including cookies and stuff from other places. They just bring in a truckload of it, and they make a mixture based on the kind of nutrients the animal needs, and then voila, turns into pellets that the animal needs. So it sounds probably a little weird or you don't quite get it, but there is a very real business on taking foodstuffs that, people didn't buy or didn't consume and turning it into animal feed, as I guess lack of a better term.
Let's see, Tundelia. I may have said that wrong. I'm sorry if I did. But I see you have your hand up there, and I know a couple other folks have unmuted. If you'll just go ahead and use that raise hand feature, and then we'll get your questions in order. We've still got a little time here left, so.
Hi, I just have a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, I have 30 years experience as an executive assistant. I have a bachelor's in business management and a minor in HR. And I'm going for my HR master's. And I originally applied for the HR assistant position in Cudahy, which is near me. But I was told that I didn't meet the minimum requirements. So would you suggest I reapply for that position and then send you an email with my resume? Or would suggest I go about reapplying for that role?
Yeah, send us an email with your resume to that veterans@smithfield.com and we can talk to them. The meeting we were on before this one was actually with our Cudahy team, so we've got some good connections there that we can chat with for you.
That, my friends, is what Heroes Connect is all about.
Exactly.
Let's see. Any other questions? I think I saw Marvin ask a question in the chat about which state had the most production level opportunities, and is that titled general production?
Great question. So our most employees by state is North Carolina. So we've got 5 manufacturing facilities in North Carolina and a lot of hog farming operations down there. In addition, the largest pork processing facility in the world is owned by us and in Tar Heel, North Carolina. And I will tell you that when you look at by volume, Tar Heel employs more people than, probably the 15 or 20 smallest facilities of ours combined. So we've got about 10,000 employees in North Carolina. And with some exception, you're always going to be able to see that job title as general production. The only real exceptions to that are we've got some niche manufacturing operations. So outside of being a pork company, we're also a spice company. So we own a company called Saratoga Specialty Spices, or Saratoga Specialty Group. And they help blend our spices that go into our products, sell them to other meat manufacturers and other companies. And actually, we are the spice provider to Yum Brands. So we are the Colonel's Secret Recipe, and we are the Diablo Fire Sauce. So, in those cases, there's machine operator roles instead of general production. So you may see machine operator as a title, but I would say about 95% of our operations openings are titled as general production. It's a good question.
Following up with that, William asked, what would a butcher be as far as a position title?
What would a butcher be as far as a bit? I don't know if we have one that's called butcher, but the person who does the butching would be general production as well. So really, the reason it's called general production is it's any labor-based job in our manufacturing environment. So whether you are, putting bacon on a pallet, whether you are the person operating the saw that cuts the hog in half, or whether you're someone operating, working with animal handling in our hog barn, if it is one of our kind of hourly individual contributor roles in manufacturing, we roll that all up under one job description. And then through the process, you kind of determine what departments you're part of. And then as you grow and get more skills and qualifications, that's when you move around those departments and start to make more pay, get more responsibility, and kind of get to choose what your role is.
Timothy, I see you down there. Do you have a question? You're muted. There you go.
I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Perfect.
A good state in that. We have a big plant about 3 miles away from me.
Yep.
I'm just trying to get into something like shipping and receiving rather than a forklift.
Yep, perfect. Send us an email to veterans@smithfield.com. And Bryant hasn't placed a DC operator in Sioux Falls who is a veteran in a month now, Bryant. So we'll be on top of that for you. So email veterans@smithfield.com, Timothy, and we will get you talking to the Sioux Falls team next week.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Again, I reiterate, this is what Heroes Connect is all about, folks. Joe, I know you said you couldn't see the raised hand feature. Do you have a question down there?
I do. I actually have, it's a 2-part question. One, all of us enrolled in this program to become a certified production technician. How much does that carry when it goes into the application as far as certifications for hire? And then does that count towards, especially with veterans, our background of doing, I'm looking at your Junction City stuff, and you have general production, maintenance mechanic, and plant maintenance supervisors. How much weight does that carry in along with your background?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it helps certainly the consideration in the process, right? What helps even more, just being very candid, and Jen, I can tell the truth right here, is when Rochelle emails me and says, hey, Joe is part of our program. Like, that honestly is the most valuable thing that comes out of your program. That being said, you know, the OSHA certifications on top of the certified production technician and some of the other stuff go a long way. Kind of unfortunately with the Junction City location, just due to the size of the facility, we don't have a lot of supervisory openings that come available. And the recommendation is always to get in production. It pays well. I guess we didn't really talk about pay. Every facility is a little bit different. You can think that the minimum pay in 95% of what we do is $15 an hour. Full benefits. Right now, we're actually paying responsibility bonuses of $5 an hour extra. We've got retention bonuses. Most cases, all the overtime you could ever want to work, and then honestly great benefits at that same time. So a lot of those production jobs are paying better than most people are probably thinking production pays. But getting into that, then that certification and that experience you have, Joe, sets you up perfectly for that quick promotion into supervisor when it's available. Our number one plan is to promote people into the supervisory role, then go outside, and you get that through that production experience. So I think I skirted a little bit of your question there, but hopefully it helped answer kind of the intent of what you were asking. Perfect. I thought it was a two-part question, so that must have been both parts. Okay, good.
Scott.
Yes, I was asking if I have not had the chance to explore your site. I came on late. I'm a Pentagon level logistics guy. That's my background. Many, many years, you know, moving things around the world and great volume. And so I wanted to know if you had any logistics management opportunities within your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, the right place to start with, you know, logistics, honestly, is in our manufacturing facilities. It's like a warehouse supervisor or a shipping supervisor is usually kind of the right leadership onboarding path in distribution. At the corporate level, we've got a lot of folks that are, you know, kind of doing the support of, whether that's on the transportation side, the customer service side, you know, the planning side of the house and all of that. A lot of that is individual contributor roles throughout the first 3 grades of promotion. But, you know, right now I've got a shipping supervisor opening in Smithfield, Virginia at our North Manufacturing plant. And I'm the recruiter of record, so I control who interviews for that. And if you're interested in Smithfield, Virginia and a shipping supervisor opportunity, again, send an email and I will get you meeting the team next week. So outside of that, again, we've got some other locations in our warehouses, as well as our manufacturing facilities, and then a lot of corporate logistics opportunities as well. On our website, you can filter by supply chain, which would be helpful, but I would also kind of do some keyword searches around warehouse and distribution because they may not show up in supply chain filters.
Okay, that sounds very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I will be shooting out my resume to you here shortly. I moved to Florida from Gloucester, Virginia, but I still have availability of my house there, so I'm not far from there.
Well, come on back to Gloucester, Virginia, and I can get you talking to the North Plant next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Troy.
Yep.
Not sure if you guys heard me or not the first 2 times, but this is what Heroes Connect is all about. All right. I'm going to give time for one final question. If anyone has it.
I'll have one. I'm interested in applying and theoretically interested in applying. I saw on here, what does the timeline look like from the time I put my application in to the time I'll actually be hired?
Great question. So if you're a production employee, our COO's expectation, I'm going to let Bryant answer that question, from application to orientation from our COO. What's the expectation, Bryant?
7 days.
7 days. Regarding anything else that's not production, usually the time frame, it really depends on where we're at in the interview process prior to your application. So typically speaking, it's about 2 weeks from application to kind of initial interview. Once that initial interview occurs, it usually takes about 2 weeks to go through the interview process and takes about another week for a final decision to be made. So in most cases, it's about a 5 to 6 week time period. Our national average, just so you're aware, is 53 days, I think is the last number that we ran, just as a method of comparison. But if it's hourly production and plant-based operations, especially as we keep our manufacturing staffed, our expectation is you apply today, you will interview tomorrow. Well, in this case, Tuesday, because today's Friday and there's a holiday, but you'll interview next business day with intent of you starting the pre-employment process within 5 days of your application. It's a good question.
All right, I lied just a little bit, maybe. Charles, I've seen you unmute there a couple times. Did you have a question that you'd like to ask?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Kinda.
Kind of.
Yep, we can hear you now.
I was trying to ask, when the interview is being conducted online at this point, if there's no jobs employed and I was willing to relocate, are the interviews conducted online with Corona and everything else going on, and a possibility of a big move?
Yeah, great question. So we are maximizing using technology for our interviews. So whether that's phone interviews or using Microsoft Teams to do video interviews, we are giving offers out without on-site visits because of the situation we're in. That's not true for every position, but that's true for a majority of the positions. So there's absolutely opportunity to remotely interview and have a job that covers your relocation for you to start. And we've seen a lot of that happen here over the last several months, especially in manufacturing-based careers. So whether that's production leadership, or maintenance side of it, that can be done 100% virtually.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Understood. Thank you. Thank you for the information.
Absolutely.
Troy and Bryant, some of the jobs on the site have been listed for 60 plus days. Are those still good to apply for?
Yeah, so,
I guess we'll just
go ahead, Bryant.
Yeah, so the answer is yes. So, well, it's technically yes. If a job is listed more than 60 days, that means that it hasn't been filled yet, because once we fill it in our applicant tracking system to its full capacity, however many head count that happens to be, then that job is unposted automatically. So I think the best course of action, especially since we're dealing with this group specifically, is if you see a job that you're interested in and you have questions about it because it's been posted for a while, or you're not quite sure if you meet the criteria or something like that. I know I personally wouldn't have a problem speaking with you before you just start blindly applying to things. So yes, you have to apply to a job before you can be considered. But what I would caution is applying to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 jobs, because if I start seeing incomplete applications and I start seeing you dispositioned in the system, that becomes a red flag. So try to walk that line without like rocking the boat. So that position might kind of sort of have somebody in the works, and they might just not have dispositioned them where they need to be, so the system closes it. So in that case, depending on the kind of job, I would say the best course of action, just ask us on the veterans@smithfield.com. Just say you're not applying to something that we already have an idea to fill it with someone else. So technically, yes, it's still open, and I'm not saying you can't apply, but I would strongly encourage you to consider talking to us first.
Yeah, historically speaking, if a job's open for definitely over 90 days and we still need to fill it, we'll refresh it so it'll look like it just opened, generally speaking. So good question.
No, good to know. All right, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up for today. So a couple next steps. First, we know that Smithfield has a very specific veterans page just for you. So make sure that you visit that to check it out. And you can email them directly to their veterans email as well. Do follow Heroes Make America Showcase page, and be sure to follow Smithfield's page on LinkedIn as well. Connect with any of us, as well as Troy and Bryant. I think that we got their LinkedIn profiles in the chat there somewhere. Might have been a little bit more towards the beginning, so you might want to scroll back to the chat on those to find them. Do please share your experience on LinkedIn or social media, wherever you prefer, with Heroes Connect M2M, so that other people can find information about our events and see all the exciting stuff and conversation that goes on here. We do have our next event Wednesday on September 9th. That's going to be with the National Fluid Power Association. So this is the first time we've done an event with an overall association. So we'll learn about fluid power. But then also they're going to bring in a couple of their smaller companies to talk about their opportunities and what they do within fluid power as well. So that's going to be Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. Don't miss out. However, you can go to the Manufacturing Institute's webpage on the Heroes Make America site, and you can scroll down and see any of our upcoming events. Get registered for all of those. As you can see, you know, you get these company representatives, you get to ask them your questions, you get to make these direct contacts with them that we hope will turn into some awesome employment opportunities within the company. So really excited about the discussion that happened here today. Troy or Bryant, any last words? Before I have another poll, so.
What was the last? We could do that. Sure, let's do that.
Oh. Well, this isn't your poll, but I can do your poll too.
Oh, no,
like.
no, you're good. So I guess closing words with us is, you know, again, if this causes you to want to work for Smithfield Foods, awesome. If it causes you to not want to work for Smithfield Foods, I think that's just as much of a win. We kind of told you who we are. On the flip side, if it makes you want to work in the industry, like that's really why we're here. We partner with Manufacturing Institute and Heroes Make America and a lot of our other partnerships, not just to recruit for Smithfield Foods, but to make you understand manufacturing careers and food manufacturing careers. So if what you took out of this is a great career with Cargill, you know, ultimately we consider that a win. We want to be here to help you. I do want to say to be mindful that there's two of me and Bryant, and there are 13,500 jobs that we're going to fill this year as a company. So our lives are pretty hectic, and unfortunately, we can't always get to everyone smartly. What I can tell you is if you did send us a note, we would have passed that on to whoever needs to see that, even if it feels like we might not have kind of given you that personal service. And we apologize for that, but we're here. Our goal and our job is to enable others to see your information and have them go through that process with you. Connect with us on social media, as she had mentioned. We really do want to help, and we're going to do everything that we can to help you in your situation. And then lastly, the value of a network is extremely important. So even if you say Smithfield Foods isn't for me, connecting with us is important, because I will tell you that almost every company Heroes Make America will introduce you to, I personally know the person who's presenting for them, right? We are that close of a network of those, top tier manufacturing companies that have a veteran focus. So whether it's John at Coke, or it's Elizabeth at Nestle, or it's Megan at General Mills. I know very closely and personally most of the folks in this space, and that's because we understand the value of a network. And the biggest takeaway I can give you is grow your network. You never know when it's going to help you out. That's all.
Excellent words of wisdom.
No one gave us a 2.
So if you have not yet, please do, we have a poll up, just getting a little bit of immediate feedback. I do ask that you answer or respond to those. And there's actually 2 questions there, so you may need to scroll down a little bit to answer the second one. So first question, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being amazing, how would you rate today's event overall? And then the second question, based on today's event, are you interested in working with Smithfield Foods? It doesn't have to be a no or a yes, and like Troy said, we're all here to educate you more on manufacturing, the roles that are available, and to help you successfully transition or find employment, whatever your situation may be. So just a couple more seconds. We're going to end this poll. Troy and Bryant, thank you so much for your time today, your open and honest feedback. we hope that Smithfield Foods finds value in our Heroes Connect events too. So, and to all of our participants, those who have been here before with us and those who this may be your first time, we hope that you'll continue to attend these events in the future, provide feedback. You are welcome to email us at heroes@nam.org with any specific feedback questions that you may have as well. So we look forward to seeing you all in the next event, and have a fantastic but safe Labor Day weekend.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks, Jen.
you.